You know that smell. You walk past a bakery on a Saturday morning, the kind with the glass case in the front and the little handwritten signs, and it hits you before you even reach the door. Warm cinnamon, brown sugar going dark at the edges, something buttery and soft underneath all of it, and you stop walking. You stand there on the sidewalk like a fool, breathing it in. Then you go inside and you look at the price tag, $5.50 for one roll. And it's good, it really is. But you eat it standing at a little table by the window, and the whole time you're thinking, someone made this, a person made this, with flour and butter and sugar and thyme, and I used to know how to do things like that. Maybe you did know, once. Maybe your mother made cinnamon rolls on Christmas morning, and you watched but never quite learned. Maybe you tried a recipe online and ended up with something dense and gummy that your family was too polite to say anything about. Maybe you bought the refrigerated tube kind and felt a little guilty about it every time. Nobody told you the real secrets, that's all. Not because they were hiding anything, it's just that the women who knew this, really knew it, learned it from their mothers and grandmothers, and somewhere along the way that passing down got interrupted. The internet gives you recipes, but recipes aren't the same as sitting in a kitchen with someone who has done this 1,000 times. I am Rosalie Jean, and I have been making cinnamon rolls from scratch since before most of the people watching this were born. My mother taught me the first version when I was 9 years old, standing on a step stool at her elbow. Over the years, I learned 4 more ways, each one with its own small secret, each one better suited to a different situation or a different kind of baker. Today, I am going to give you all 5. No mixer. Not a single one of these methods requires a stand mixer or a hand mixer or any electric equipment at all. Just a bowl, a wooden spoon, your hands, and a few things that are almost certainly already in your kitchen right now. By the end of this video, you will know 5 different ways to make old-fashioned cinnamon rolls from scratch, and you will understand exactly why each technique produces a different result. You will never again stand at that bakery counter and feel like this is something other people know how to do. And stay with me until the end, because the 5th method, the one my mother called her company secret, is the one that will make people ask you where you bought these. I mean it. Before we get into the 5 methods, I want to take 2 minutes and explain something that most recipes skip right over. If you understand this one thing, everything else in this video will make sense on its own. Cinnamon rolls are a yeasted enriched dough. That word, enriched, just means the dough has eggs and fat added to it, butter, sometimes milk, maybe an egg or 2. These things make the dough tender and rich, but they also slow the yeast down. Fat coats the little yeast cells and keeps them from going as fast as they normally would. This is not a problem. It is actually the secret to soft, pillowy rolls that don't go stale in 2 hours. Slow yeast, slow rise, better flavor, better texture. Here is the one-line version you can repeat to anyone. A rich dough rises slow, and slow is good. When you rush an enriched dough, when you put it somewhere too hot trying to speed things up, or when you don't give it enough time, you get rolls that look fine but taste flat. The flavor hasn't had time to develop, the texture turns dense, and if the yeast gets too hot, above 110 degrees Fahrenheit, it dies and the dough doesn't rise at all. That's where most failed cinnamon rolls come from, not bad ingredients. Impatience and heat. A warm kitchen, somewhere between 75 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit, is all you need for the rise. No warmer. Give it the time it asks for. That is the whole foundation. Now, the 5 secrets. The first secret, the overnight cold rise. This is the method I make most often now, and I want to start here because it changed how I feel about cinnamon rolls completely. Before I learned this, cinnamon rolls were a morning project. You had to wake up early, sometimes 3 hours early, to have them ready for breakfast. My husband used to joke that I set my alarm to bake, and he wasn't entirely wrong. The overnight cold rise means you mix and shape the rolls the night before, you put them in the refrigerator, and in the morning you take them out, let them warm up for about 45 minutes on the counter, and then bake them. The oven does the rest. Here is why it works, and why it actually makes better rolls than the same-day method. Cold slows the yeast dramatically, almost to a stop, but it doesn't kill it. While those rolls sit in the refrigerator overnight, the yeast is working very, very slowly. 8 hours, 10 hours, maybe more. And that slow, long fermentation develops flavor in a way that a 2-hour countertop rise simply cannot match. The rolls get a slight depth to them, a hint of something almost tangy, not sour, just complex. Like the difference between a tomato ripened on the vine and one ripened in a paper bag on your counter. For this method, the dough is straightforward. You need 3 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 1/4 teaspoons of active dry yeast, that is 1 standard packet, 1/2 cup of whole milk, 1/4 cup of warm water, 3 tablespoons of granulated sugar, 1 teaspoon of fine salt, 1 egg, and 3 tablespoons of softened butter. Warm your milk to about 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Warm to the touch, not hot, like a comfortable bath. Add the warm water, the yeast, and 1 teaspoon of the sugar. Let that sit for 10 minutes until it foams. If it doesn't foam, your yeast is old. Start with a fresh packet. Add the egg, the remaining sugar, and the salt. Add the flour 1 cup at a time, stirring with a wooden spoon. When it gets too thick to stir, turn it out and knead by hand for 8 minutes. 10 if you're not sure. You want a dough that is smooth and just slightly tacky, not sticky. When you poke it, it should spring back slowly. That spring back is your gluten telling you it's ready. Let it rest, covered, for just 30 minutes on the counter. This is not the main rise. This is just enough rest so the gluten relaxes and you can roll it without it fighting you. Roll it out to a rectangle, roughly 12 inches by 18 inches, about 1/4 inch thick. Spread it with 4 tablespoons of softened butter, soft enough to spread without tearing, then a mixture of 3/4 of a cup of packed brown sugar and 2 1/2 teaspoons of cinnamon. Roll it tight from the long side, cut into 12 rolls, place them in a buttered 9 by 13 inch pan, cover tightly with plastic wrap or a clean kitchen towel, and put them in the refrigerator. In the morning, take them out. Let them sit on the counter for 45 minutes. They will puff slightly as they warm. Bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 22 to 25 minutes until the tops are golden and a roll pulled from the center feels set when you press it gently. That 45 minutes of counter time is not optional. I learned this the hard way when my granddaughter wanted rolls early one Christmas morning, and I thought I could skip the rest and go straight from the refrigerator to the oven. The outside baked before the inside woke up. Hard edges, doughy centers. She was too sweet to say anything, but I knew. 45 minutes, always. The second secret, the scalded milk method. This one comes straight from my mother, and it is the method most people under 60 have never even heard of. Scalding milk means heating it until it is just below boiling. You will see small bubbles forming around the edges of the pan and steam rising from the surface, and then letting it cool before you use it. Old cookbooks always called for scalded milk. When home refrigeration was new and milk wasn't as reliably pasteurized as it is today, scalding killed bacteria. Most people assume that's the only reason it was done, and that since modern milk is pasteurized, you can skip it. But you lose something. Milk contains a protein called whey protein. When whey protein is present in dough, it interferes with gluten development in a small but real way, making the crumb slightly more dense and causing the dough to not rise quite as high. Scalding deactivates that protein. The result is a dough that rises higher, has a softer, more open crumb, and stays soft longer after baking. My mother's rolls were always softer on day 2 than most people's rolls are on day 1. This is why. For this method, heat 3/4 of a cup of whole milk in a small saucepan over medium heat. Watch it, don't leave it. When you see those little bubbles appear around the edges and the milk steams, take it off the heat, pour it into a bowl and let it cool to about 100 degrees Fahrenheit, about 30 minutes at room temperature, or you can set the bowl in a larger bowl of cool water to speed it up. Once it's at temperature, add 1 packet of active dry yeast and 1 tablespoon of sugar. Let it sit 10 minutes to foam. The rest of the dough, 3½ cups of all-purpose flour, 1/3 cup of sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, 2 eggs, and 4 tablespoons of softened butter, added in pieces as you need. The butter goes in last. After the dough is mostly together, worked in a tablespoon at a time. This takes patience. The dough will look greasy and torn for a few minutes, and then, almost suddenly, it will come back together smooth and silky. This is called the window pane moment for butter in enriched dough. Don't give up before you get there. Rise time for this dough, about 1½ hours the first rise, until doubled. Punch it down, shape your rolls, second rise in the pan for 45 minutes to an hour. Bake at 325 degrees Fahrenheit for 25 minutes. The lower temperature matters here. This dough is richer, more butter, more egg, and it browns faster. 325 degrees gives it time to bake through without the tops getting too dark before the center's set. One honest limitation, this method takes longer, and it takes more attention during the milk step. If you walk away and let the milk boil, you'll lose some of the milk fat to the surface as skin and the flavor changes. Watch the milk. It's worth the extra 5 minutes of attention. The third secret, the no-knead pull-apart method. Now I want to talk about the method for the baker who has never done this before and is a little nervous, or for the person who is short on time or just had hip surgery and can't stand at the counter for 10 minutes working dough. This one is for you, dear. No-knead dough sounds too simple to be real. I understand the skepticism. I had it myself the first time a neighbor described it to me over the back fence. She swore by it. I nodded politely and thought, surely there's a catch. There isn't. The science is this. Gluten develops 2 ways. You can work it mechanically, that's kneading, or you can let time do the same job. A very wet, loose dough, given enough time, will develop gluten on its own through a long, slow hydration process. The gluten strands form, they relax, they align. No effort from you at all. The dough does the work while you're asleep or doing something else entirely. For no-knead cinnamon rolls, the dough is wetter than you're used to. That is intentional. Do not add flour to correct it. Use 3 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 1/4 teaspoons of instant yeast, not active dry, instant, 1/2 cup of milk, 1/2 cup of warm water, 3 tablespoons of sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil in place of butter. Stir everything together with a wooden spoon until you get a shaggy, sticky mass. Cover the bowl with plastic wrap and put it in the refrigerator for at least 12 hours, up to 18. The dough will be very sticky when you take it out. That is expected. Flour your surface generously, more generously than you think you need. Turn the dough out quickly, flour the top, and pat it into a rectangle rather than rolling it. Patting is easier than rolling with a sticky dough. Keep your hands floured. Add the filling, 3 tablespoons of softened butter in thin pieces placed across the surface, then the brown sugar and cinnamon mixture, and roll as tightly as you can. The rolls from this method will be slightly more rustic in appearance. They won't have quite the same defined swirl as the kneaded versions, but the texture, open, soft, almost pillowy, is something special, and they pull apart beautifully. No knife needed. They almost ask to be shared. The 4th secret, the brown butter filling. The filling is where most home bakers are leaving the most flavor on the table, and nobody ever talks about it. Every recipe says butter, brown sugar, cinnamon. That's fine. That makes a good cinnamon roll. But a great cinnamon roll, the kind where someone takes a bite and stops talking and just closes their eyes for a second, that comes down to one small 5-minute change to the filling. Brown the butter. Browning butter is simply cooking it past the melting point until the milk solids in the butter caramelize. The butter goes from yellow to golden to a deep amber, and it smells, honestly, like toasted hazelnuts, like something warm and complicated, like a bakery, but better. Here is how you do it. Take 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter and put it in a light-colored saucepan, light-colored so you can see the color change, medium heat. Stir or swirl gently as it melts and then begins to foam. The foam will subside, and underneath you'll see the butter changing color. Pale gold, then deeper gold, then amber. The moment you smell that nutty, toasted smell and see amber at the bottom, take it off the heat immediately and pour it into a bowl. If you leave it one more minute, it burns, and burned butter is bitter and must be thrown out. Amber is the target. The moment you smell it, pour it. Let it cool for about 10 minutes. It will thicken slightly as it cools. Then mix your brown sugar, 3/4 of a cup, packed, and your cinnamon, 2½ teaspoons, directly into the browned butter until you get a thick, dark paste. Spread this paste across your rolled dough. Because it's a paste rather than separate ingredients, it stays in place better during rolling and baking. The filling won't leak out and pool at the bottom of the pan the way it does when you use softened butter and sprinkle the sugar separately. This filling method works with any of the 5 dough methods in this video. It is not a separate recipe. It is an upgrade to every other recipe you already have. Use it with the overnight dough. Use it with the scalded milk dough. Use it with the no-knead dough. It will improve every single one of them. The one thing I'll say honestly, browning butter takes your full attention for about 3 minutes. Turn away at the wrong moment, and it goes from amber to black fast. Stay at the stove. It is worth every second of that attention, but don't try to do it while you're also rolling dough or watching something on television. 3 minutes of your full focus. That's all it asks. The 5th secret, the Tangzhong method. My mother's company secret. This is the one I promised you at the beginning. And now that you've been patient and stayed with me, here it is. My mother called it her company's secret, and she never wrote it down. She taught it to me the way she taught me everything, by doing it while I watched, explaining as she went, trusting that if I paid attention, it would stick. It stuck. Tangzhong is a Japanese technique. The word comes from Japanese baking, which was influenced by Chinese baking traditions, and what it means is a flour paste cooked in liquid before it goes into the dough. You take a small amount of flour and a small amount of milk, cook them together in a saucepan until you get a thick, pudding-like paste, and then let that paste cool and add it to your dough. What this paste does is remarkable. When starch and liquid are cooked together, the starch granules absorb the liquid and swell. They gelatinize, and that gelatinized starch, worked into a bread dough, holds on to moisture in a way that raw starch simply cannot. The result is bread, or in this case cinnamon rolls, that are softer than anything you've ever made, that stay soft for 3 days, that have a texture like touching a cloud, not gummy, not dense, just impossibly gently soft. My mother didn't know the Japanese term for it. She didn't know the science behind it. She knew that if she cooked a little flour in a little milk first, her rolls were better than everybody else's, and she was right, and she kept that to herself for company. Here is how to make the Tangzhong paste. Put 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour and 1/2 cup of whole milk in a small saucepan. Whisk them together cold before you turn on any heat until the flour is completely dissolved and there are no lumps. Then set the heat to medium-low. Whisk constantly. In about 4 to 5 minutes, the mixture will thicken dramatically. It goes from thin liquid to something that holds its shape like a soft pudding, all at once. You'll know it's done when it leaves tracks on the bottom of the pan when you drag the whisk through. Take it off the heat immediately. Spread it onto a plate or into a bowl and let it cool to room temperature. Do not rush this. Hot paste added to dough will kill your yeast. Once it's cool, this paste goes into your dough along with everything else. For the full Tangzhong dough, you need the Tangzhong paste you just made, 2 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 1/4 teaspoons of active dry yeast, 1/4 cup of warm milk, 3 tablespoons of sugar, 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt, 1 egg, and 3 tablespoons of softened butter. The Tangzhong replaces some of the fat and liquid you'd use otherwise. Don't add extra milk on top of it or the dough will be too wet. Mix, then knead for 8 to 10 minutes. The dough will be softer and slightly stickier than a standard dough, and it stays that way even when properly developed. Resist adding flour. The softness is correct. First rise, 1.5 hours until doubled. Shape, fill with the brown butter filling from method 4 if you want to be truly unstoppable. Second rise in the pan for 45 minutes. Bake at 325 degrees Fahrenheit for 22 minutes. When these come out of the oven, they will feel lighter than they look. When you pull one away from the pan, the inside layers will separate like pages in a book. Each layer will be soft enough to compress between your fingers and spring back almost completely. These are the rolls that make people go quiet. And on day 2, after a night in a covered pan at room temperature, they will still be soft. Day 3, still soft. That is the Tangzhong doing its work. Most homemade cinnamon rolls are best the day they're made. These are the exception. I will be honest with you about one thing. This method requires the most steps. The paste takes 5 minutes of active attention. The dough is softer and takes a confident hand during shaping. If you are a first-time cinnamon roll baker, I would suggest starting with method 1 or method 3, getting comfortable, and coming back to this one when you're ready. It is not hard, but it rewards a little experience. Now let me put all 5 of these together for you in plain terms. You walked into this video knowing that cinnamon rolls cost $5.50 a piece at a bakery and that making them yourself felt like a mystery you'd never quite cracked. Here is what a batch of 12 rolls costs you at home with any of these 5 methods. Flour, about 50 cents. Butter, about 70 cents. Milk, about 30 cents. Sugar, cinnamon, yeast, egg, together about 60 cents. The cream cheese and powdered sugar for a simple glaze, about 40 cents more. Total, roughly $2.50 for 12 rolls. At the bakery, 12 of those rolls would cost you $66. $2.50 at home versus $66 at the counter. And yours will be warm. You will know every single thing that went into them. Your kitchen will smell like the best morning of the year. If you make cinnamon rolls twice a month, which, once you know these methods, you will want to, you save over $1,500 a year compared to buying them out. $1,500, that is not a small thing. But the number that matters most to me is not a dollar amount. It is the look on my granddaughter's face the first time I let her roll out the dough herself. 8 years old, standing on the same step stool I stood on at my mother's counter. That is what this is really worth. Here is your homework for this week. Pick one method, just one, don't try all 5 at once, and make a batch. I would suggest starting with the overnight cold rise method if you've made cinnamon rolls before, or the no-knead method if this is your first time. Make 12 rolls. Invite someone over for breakfast. Let the smell do the greeting. And when you do, come back here and tell me which method you tried and how it went. Tell me if something surprised you. Tell me if someone in your family had a reaction. I read every single one of these comments. Everyone, your stories matter to me, and they help other people watching find the courage to try. I'd also love to know this. Does your family have a cinnamon roll tradition, a special time of year when they were made, or a family member who was known for them? Leave that in the comments. Those stories are the best part of what we do here together. Next week, I am going to show you something I have been keeping in my back pocket for years. A bread that costs almost nothing to make, that most people have never heard of, and that will become the most requested thing in your kitchen inside of 1 month. I am not exaggerating. Come back for it. Until then, keep your hands warm, keep your dough patient, and never let anyone rush you out of your own kitchen, dear. I am Rosalie Jean. Thank you for spending this morning with me.